Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about not doing any coding. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, as a software engineer, what has been the longest streak for you where you did no coding at all? Well, since I work full time as a software developer, and I have done so for a few years now, uh, I think we're gonna have to divide this up into. Oh, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do this my way. I'm gonna decide that we're gonna talk about no coding at work and no coding in my spare time, because that is something that I usually do as well. So let's start with the easy one first. No coding at work. I think that the longest duration without any coding whatsoever has been, I think it was 2 days. Yeah, something like that. 2 or 3. No, actually, no. I think I'm thinking there's a few situations. Like, let's say 5 days, roughly 5 days at work without any coding whatsoever. The reason why that was because of that thing that everybody loves more than anything else, and everybody wants more of: meetings. 5 days of planning meetings. Technically, it was a little bit of a company kickoff as well, where we sort of like we were trying out this new planning system, basically for how to do the how to plan the quarterly work, put up a quarterly roadmap. Don't get me started on that. We took 5 full days to figure that out. I said my piece to everybody who knows me about that. That I thought that was complete insanity. Today we do the same thing in, I think, the total amount of time it takes today is like a few hours. Say to be really lofty, 6 hours, 8 hours total. And yeah, I would say that is the answer. Usually I don't spend, since I do work as a programmer every single day, well, as a full-time job. I mean, most of what I do is coding related. There are absolutely days when I do a lot less coding than other days, especially depending on what type of management strategy I'm using. Today I do less coding, which is a bit of a source of frustration for me, because I was going through. We've gone through a change in team structure in my specific role, where we've had a few new hires who came with a new concept that I've never worked this way before, where the idea is, in essence, now I'm going to completely botch this explanation, so just bear with me because it's new to me as well. The idea is that we don't plan out work. Our product owner doesn't plan out the roadmap for us, but rather we create so-called squads around different initiatives. In other words, everybody sort of becomes a mini PO. Everybody's responsible for grooming the stories and preparing the work, and basically doing all the work that doing kind of crowdsourcing almost the work of the product owner. And then instead of having that prepared when the sprint starts or so forth, we're preparing it together. And during that process, I've found that because there's so much administrative work and preparations, and there's also dependencies where, all right, we need to first do the planning, like what are we actually going to do, and then that's done. Usually we might have another dependency to the design department where, all right, the designers needs to produce some type of artboards, which kind of blocks us again, because now the developers can't really, I mean, we are the last frontier, or rather we're the last part in the chain, unless we had a QA team, of course, as well, where we have to do the work, where we actually produce the code. But that can't happen until all of these prerequisites are in place. And since we are now involved in that as well, we kind of sit around. Or I'm not saying sit around, because I always find something. This is a strategy that I'll give this away for free. Log all the bugs and all improvements that you ever thought was useful in your backlog for a moment just like this, because it doesn't matter if it's something that would take 5 minutes or if it's something that's going to take 10 hours. It doesn't matter, because if you have a backlog of nice to have stories that you don't prioritize necessarily when something more important is there, when things like this happens, you can always pick something. You can always figure out that, oh yeah, I have 5 minutes over, I'll fix this CSS thing, or I have a day, well, I have this improvement that I would like to try out, and then pick that up. So technically I'm doing coding, but I'm not actually working on anything, because the way that this is because of this way of management, there's a lot of slack time. The last time I did this little coding was when we had a knowledge transfer type of thing, where basically I didn't do anything real, I think, for 2 weeks at my last job. So, well, 2 weeks is maybe too long. I can't really remember. It was a few years ago now, but it was a similar sort of thing. They were dismantling the office, and basically all we were paid to do was to sit around and knowledge transfer to the team that was going to take over the responsibility. And they didn't really need me, so I sat there and I just watched YouTube videos quite a lot. So that is probably the longest I've been without coding in my job. In my spare time, I would say it's been a few months, maybe. Yeah, something like that. Because usually I've gotten to the point now where there's a very nice book that you can read that is called The Dip, where the idea is basically, and I'm very broad stroking it right now, is that when you start anything that you're new on, or you're something that you're excited about, you have a exponential progression, or like your interest levels is super high and you're really enthusiastic about the thing. But at some point you're going to start to level out, and then you're going to reach what we call the dip, where you're not so interested anymore, you're a little bit bored, you're feeling a little bit unmotivated or things like that. And here is the idea. The idea is that if you make it through that plateau for long enough, you're going to get something new in your lap that is going to exponentially again bring up your enthusiasm level, and that is when you become a true professional. And I've been in that spot now for quite some time. You may or may not have noticed that, because usually it's I've been fairly good at producing coding videos, like things like that, but it's actually been quite a few months since I did anything like that, because I've gotten to this point where I feel like I need that I'm in right now in an emotional state where I'm looking for the next thing that is going to be interesting to me to do. And so instead of doing all this extra coding that usually was just extra steam that I had over because I really love my job, and I still do, I do other things. I study things, I watch more videos and try to learn things and educate myself, rather than just making coding videos or working on side projects and stuff like that. And usually whenever I pick up a new coding related thing, I've had a good streak these past few days, where I actually did some stuff, but before that it was several months in between where I actually did any type of coding. And it's gonna it's gonna pick up back again to some point, but I'm also not naive. I don't think that my interest for doing hobby level side projects is going to be there forever at the same level and enthusiasm that it was when I was starting out my career. So what I want you to take away from this is that for work, the longest I've been gone without doing any coding, completely without it, I think is 5 days, say maybe 2 weeks depending on my memory. And it's usually because for the 2 weeks thing, it was because they were literally shutting down our entire office. For the 5 day thing was because of the thing that everybody loves, meetings, a lot of planning, a lot of just sitting around discussing wording and so forth. These days I'm also in a similar situation where I do less. I have so much slack time sometimes that it's a little bit annoying to me at the very least. And it's usually and you will learn this, guys, as well, when you don't have anything to do as a software developer, it is very rarely because there's no code to be written. It's mostly because of planning and meetings and scheduling and administrative work and so forth. That's the reality. And in my private time, it has been a few months, because as I was saying, you as just as I promise you, if you do this for long enough, it's very likely that you start out really enthusiastic about the thing that you're doing, and then at some point you're going to find things kind of, yeah, I kind of already know this. You're trying to find articles, you're trying to find inspiration, but you've already sort of seen everything, and everything is either like a sales pitch for something you know isn't relevant, or a repeat of something you already know. And it gets harder and harder to find new stimulating things, and that can be demotivating. But I promise you, just like the thing I've said before, IT is always moving. So if you can just kind of hold on, the idea is, if you read the dip, that if you get through that process, that plateau, something good is going to come down the road, and that's going to get you up back again with your enthusiasm. Have a great day.